everybody. Welcome back to the show. This is Steve, the retired hobby tech guy. The guy who's retired in Korea. We sold everything in the United States, house, cars, gun, ammo, prepping, everything in the kitchen junk drawer. And what we ended up doing is taking a couple of suitcases and we ended up retiring here in Korea. This episode, we're going to talk about all this stuff down here. Soldiers are out. USFK is supposedly, according to I think the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal, one of those things, saying that, there's reports that, 4,500 soldiers are going to be pulled out of Korea. And I've gotten a bunch of messages about that. And what are we going to do? And is this true? And are you still going to stay retired in Korea? And some people that are nervous and saying, should I retire in Korea with all of these soldiers leaving Korea? We're going to talk about that. And then we're going to talk about overseas direct deposit, because I found out some interesting information from one of the viewers who shared some great info. And I highly suggest you share info because I need all the help I can get and we can help everybody in this situation. But I found out about a special overseas direct deposit of your VA disability into a foreign bank. Who knew? Moving household goods and exchanging the driver's licenses here in Korea. So we're going to talk about all that stuff. So the first thing, let's go ahead and jump right to the important stuff. Smash and like the like button. Smash, subscribe, like, share, all of that stuff. Go ahead, do that. I'm going to take a drink to wet my whistle. So now that you've done that, we can drive on. So congratulations. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. First thing we're going to talk about today is the Pentagon and USFK deny reports of U.S. troop withdrawal from Korea. Yeah, this was an interesting one because I woke up and I started getting messages and it's like, oh, the sky is falling, you better get ready to leave. And, North Korea is going to come and attack and all this stuff. And I was like, whoa, I don't think so. And the Korea Jung-on Daily reported on this, and so did a number of other things. But the U.S. State Department of Defense and USFK, U.S. Status of Forces Korea, both on Friday denied a Wall Street Journal report claiming that the Trump administration was considering withdrawing 4,500 troops. With that being said, there's probably about 28 to 30,000 troops here and contractors and so on and so forth. And this has been a big place for the military to kind of stave off aggressions of North Korea and help stabilize the China, Korea, sometimes the Russia thing that goes on in this part of the world to just kind of make things normal, regardless of whatever president it has been, and it's worked well over the years. There used to be a larger contingency of soldiers in the U.S. military, but we've gone to the point of where now they have pulled back, and a lot of the bases that used to be up in the northern part of South Korea, I didn't say North Korea, but the northern parts have moved down, and even the Yongsan garrison, which used to be the hub, the military hub of Korea for USFK, moved down to Camp Humphreys of where we're at. So now Camp Humphreys is the largest overseas U.S. military base in the world. And like I said, they have about 28 to 30,000, and they're still building apartments and family housing, and there's still a lot of stuff going on. So what I've heard in my neck of the woods is that nothing is changing. But this article actually says this. USFK dismisses report claiming Pentagon is going to pull 4,500 troops. No discussion whatsoever. Pentagon eyes withdrawing troops, the Wall Street Journal reports. Anything that the Wall Street Journal puts out, I would verify that. You can trust, but verify your information sources. And because once I heard that, I was like, yeah, let's wait a little bit and see what happens. And sure enough, it says the report of U.S. troop reduction is not true, according to the Department of Defense. There is talk of how the military is going to be drawn down a little bit. There are going to be some reductions in force, but it's part of basically a reorganization of what they do, every so often, just like businesses do. They will reorganize their workforce, and the military does the same thing. So it's a constant fluctuation of things that go on, do more with less, less with more, whatever it is. it works out. The U.S. remains firmly committed to the defense of the Republic of Korea, and we look forward to working with the incoming government officials to maintain strength and our ironclad alliance. USFK echoed this position in a statement the same day. The Wall Street Journal stated the U.S. defense officials that the Trump administration was going to relocate 4,500 troops to other areas in the Indo-Pacific region, including Guam. It just haven't seen anything of that, and there's been no discussions whatsoever in the ROC in the United States in the withdrawal of U.S. forces. So we can wipe that burden off of our minds and continue on. So that's kind of an interesting thing, because a lot of people will send me information, and whatever crosses the interwebs will come and hit me, and they'll say, well, what do you think's going on? And it's like, okay, just relax. Let's see how things pan out, and let's trust and verify and see what's really going on. And so not only does this deal with news sources, but it also deals with other information of being retired in Korea and what, military retirees or people that are retiring in Korea, where one is a foreign national and one has some Korean ancestry. We can get to the bottom of that by doing some extensive searching and finding out the truth. And then also by having boots on the ground over here and giving you our experiences and sharing the things that we have found. As I've talked about in other videos, a lot of people have come up with some pretty interesting things on what you can and can't do in Korea. I've had people tell me that you can't move household goods to Korea, you can't exchange your license, foreigners can't buy property, and all of these things have to be taken in context. So, for example, I've talked about this before. There was a gentleman who said, and he lives in Korea. He says, well, foreigners can't buy property in Korea. Well, long story short, he applied for a mortgage from a Korean bank, and he didn't meet the lending requirements. The debt to income ratios and how they, judge the risk of somebody wanting a loan. And he didn't meet those requirements, so he wasn't able to buy property. So his takeaway from that was, maybe it was through a mistranslation, Korean, English, English, Korean, and whatever it was, and he came away with foreigners can't buy property. Well, foreigners can buy property, and you don't even have to come to Korea to buy property. You can come to Korea and buy property, you could be on a tourist visa and buy property, or you could be on a work visa or an F1 or F4 visa. Mine's an F1 visa, and I was able to buy property over here. So didn't do the mortgage thing, but we paid in cash, and boom, all you got to do is a little bit extra paperwork, which a knowledgeable realtor will supply all that stuff, and it's a pretty painless procedure. It's a little nerve-wracking because it's different than what we did in the United States, but nevertheless, it turned out okay. The other thing I had people tell me is that, you can't move your household goods. You can't deposit money in Korean banks, from your bank. I've heard that as well. And, you have to Western Union, but that was a long time ago. But with that, let's talk about deposits. Let's look at the VA overseas. Now, this is some great information for people that have been asking and saying, well, how do I get my funds from a U.S. bank to my Korean bank account after I have my visa and get my Korean registration card, which is kind of like your green card in the United States? How do we transfer money? Well, you can do wire transfers, international transfers from your U.S. bank to a Korean bank. You're going to get hit up on some fees and, $30, $50 here. Maybe the Korean bank is going to add some money to that. And then when it transfers that info or that exchange, your Korean bank's not going to give you that good of an exchange rate. So you've got to contend with that. And I think we've got some problems here with the audio and the video syncing again. And I apologize for that, because when I went through and I checked everything prior to starting, everything was working fine. So we're just going to drive on. I am really not happy with this, and this happened after the recent Mac update. So we'll just kind of, if my voice and the audio and the video don't sync, just kind of squint your eyes and just listen to my words. So anyway, we're talking about the VA disability. This is a really good one, and we're going to take a look at this right now because somebody passed this along, and this was pretty amazing. This is from the VA website, vabenefits.va.gov/persona veteran-abroad.asp, and veterans living overseas. And it talks about veterans who live overseas are entitled to the benefits and services that you've earned through your military service. Most benefits are payable regardless of your place of residence or nationality. This is interesting. VA benefits include disability compensation, pension, education training, health care, home loans, insurance, voc rehab, and employment, along with burial. Now, here's the good stuff it comes down. Direct deposit. Once benefit payments are sent from the United States to your international direct deposit, arrival depends on your foreign financial institution's processing type. So this means that you can get your VA disability direct deposited to your Korean bank account or foreign bank account. And then you have some other information here talking about VA claim exams and so on and so forth. Currency conversion, international treasury services will not charge you a currency conversion fee for payments. However, your foreign financial institution may charge fees as applicable. So yeah, that is some pretty great information. So if you need assistance, you can end up looking at this information down here and contact your VA. You can get a screenshot of that, questions and whatever phone numbers. You can pause and get that information. So yeah, it also has some information on Social Security Foreign Country Service information page. That is some very good stuff as well. So yeah, this is great news for people who have their VA disability and you want to do that direct deposit. You can do that with your VA disability. So the good thing about that is you get at least your VA disability. The problem that I see is that now there's people that will, unfortunately, they don't do that with the military pension. So it's like, well, how in the world does that happen? I mean, it's 2025. If you can get your VA disability from the United States to a foreign bank account, why can't you get your military pension? I don't know. It's slow goes the wheels of government. So anyway, we're gonna talk about that. Now, the other thing we're going to take a look at, since we're talking about being in Korea and taking a look at, let me see if I can get this popped up. We're going to talk about moving and getting your household goods to Korea. Now, for those of you who know what my wife and I did, we sold everything, like I said, arrived with a couple of suitcases, and that's how we did it. With that, you can ship household goods, and we're going to go over some information. Some people were asking about that, so I did some digging, and I found some information on the Korean Customs Service. So let's go ahead and check that out. So here we are. The Korean Customs Service and customs.go.kr/ you can copy that. I'll try to put a link in the description box after I post this video. But it's talking about moving to Korea and customs clearance for moving household effects to Korea for foreigners. So people like you and me coming from the United States, we can ship household goods. Customs clearance is a procedure a person who enters a country for the purpose of relocating his or her residence to Korea, as we saw right there, reports the details and how you can be exempt from duties and fees and taxes in accordance with the Customs Act. Confirmation, a person who moves to Korea, that person being a foreigner or overseas Koreans who intend to live in Korea for at least 1 year, 6 months if accompanied by family members. Duration of residence, and again, this period identified by your alien registration card, or they call it your Korean registration card now, issued by the immigration office or domestic employment contracts. For overseas permanent residents, the period is to be confirmed by employment contracts upon entering the country for employment or passport validity certificates issued by the ministers and the trade and blah, blah, blah. Short-term residents, foreigners who wish to live in Korea for at least 3 months to less than 6 months, including overseas permanent residents. So yeah, if you wanted to ship some stuff to Korea and you're going to stay in Korea for a long time, like we are retired, you could ship those items. If you're going to be a short term, at least 3 months and less than 6 months, you could ship items as well. So we take a look at these things. This is the question that a lot of people ask. Carry-in period for unaccompanied household effects. These items should be arrived in Korea within 6 months, referring to the date of entry of the ship, aircraft, loading the goods, from the date of arrival of the person who moves to Korea. So let's say you're in the United States and you got your F1, F4 visa and you fly to Korea, boom, you hit boots on the ground, you go through immigration and all that. You have 6 months to get those items, and that will exempt you from having to pay those customs fees. So that's kind of interesting. A person who renounces talks about naturalized citizen and stuff like that. Person who restored citizenship, things like that. People who have Korean ancestry. So maybe they were born and lived in Korea, they married a foreigner and then became a citizen of another country. Again, to restore your citizenship, they can go through the immigration office. And for those people that are below the age of 65, that would most likely be an F4 visa. And if you hit 65 and you have Korean ancestry, you can get your dual citizenship, which would restore your Korean citizenship. And so that is a thing that you can do. You would have to contact a Korean immigration lawyer to get all the details on that, but that's another option. The goods are subject to tax exemption. So this is awesome because there's a lot of things that comes into Korea that has value-added tax, import fees, and this and that. You really don't want to do that. But the good thing is because when you move to Korea, and like we're seeing here, the moving of goods for more than 3 months are subject to duty exemption unless they're subject to mandatory taxation. Short-term residence, 3 months, generally recognized as personal effects and consideration for the reason of relocating, residence, occupation, residential period, blah, blah, blah. Here is the subject of mandatory taxation. Motor vehicles, excluding vehicles exported from Korea, jewelry, pearls, tortoiseshells, all of these things here, taxable prices of 5 million Korean won or more per unit. Goods used less than 3 months as household effects before entry. So in other words, what they don't want you to do is try to skirt the system and buy a bunch of brand new stuff, get to Korea and sell it and make money. Because things like electronics are more expensive over here in Korea. So doing the move thing, the thing is, it's like, you get a big screen TV or whatever electronics, as long as it's, more than 3 months old and you have receipts, you're good to go. Beyond scope of taxation is the table below. So you have the number of goods, such as furniture, household appliances, excluding personal effects and miscellaneous goods, number of family members, and so on and so forth. And then it goes on and talks about customs clearance for importing vehicles to Korea. But really, in all actuality, I don't see the need to register or to ship a vehicle here to Korea. To me, it just doesn't make sense. There's one vehicle per household. There's a duty exemption for that. And vehicles exported from Korea, if it on the registration plate, usually starting with a K, you can get an exemption. But it just doesn't seem, the estimated duties, as like we see here, engine capacity, about 19 cents of the dutiable value. If it's more than 1,000, then it's about 24%. So really, it doesn't make sense economically, math-wise, to bring a vehicle over here, because you should just sell it in the United States, come to Korea, buy a Korean spec vehicle, and you'll save a little bit of money. So unless there's some die-hard reason of why you would want to keep a U.S. vehicle and ship it over here and spend the money to ship the vehicle and then have to pay duties and VATs and all that stuff on top of that, just don't see the reason for that. So then there's the procedures for the customs clearance. Of course, there's going to be an inspection, self-certification, environment certification, vehicle registration, all of these things. And if your vehicle has problems, you're going to have to pay money to deal with that. So especially with the environmental certification. Precaution of input declaration. Moving goods shall be lodged in the name of the person who moves to Korea, and it is necessary to submit descriptions of declared items, a packing list, bill of lading, your alien registration card, visa, your domestic employment certificate, passport validity, all the documents related if there's any vehicles, and all of those should be in English. And just to be safe, I would have those translated. You know, you do online translation for free of those documents in Korean as well to make things a little bit easier. So, and there's some contact information for, Korean Customs Service centers, Customs Office in Seoul, Incheon, Daejeon, and Yongdong Customs. You can find that information out there. So, that is a good thing, is you can move things to Korea, your household goods. People have asked me, what would I do different if I was going to ship goods to Korea? Well, here's the thing, is that would I ship a washer and dryer? No, I wouldn't. I would just buy one here in Korea because the voltage is 220. In the United States, it's 110, and just get the 220 here in Korea. The only thing that I've ever said that I wished I had brought to Korea, that if I could go back in time and move stuff, would be our American style bed. So we had an Ethan Allen style bed, and what ended up happening with that is we got rid of it, obviously. But we get to Korea, and the Korean beds are very different than what they are in the United States. And, some people don't care. Some people, a bed's a bed. It doesn't matter if it's Korean American. But both my wife and I, we really miss our Ethan Allen queen size bed where, it was raised up a bit and it was off the floor. The Korean beds are sitting on the floor. The bed frames are sitting on the floor. You can't put anything underneath them. There are some beds where, they have drawers underneath them and things like that, but it's just not the same height as American style furniture. So that would be the one thing I would definitely, if you care about the height of your bed, things like that. And I haven't been able to find a bed like that here in Korea. So it's I'm hoping somebody who moves here in the military will sell their American style bed frame, kind of similar to the Ethan Allen queen size, and maybe we can get it that way. But otherwise, the Korean bed frames, it's kind of like two boxes, and then they slide together, and then you put your box spring and your mattress on top of that, and it is lower to the floor, which is easier to get up in the morning, but it's just, we just don't like that. So it is what it is. With that being said, the next thing we want to talk about is exchanging the driver's license. This is another big thing that people have been talking about. And the information changes on this. This is very interesting, and I can't find any hard-nosed information. So we're going to go over a variety, and I'll tell you what I know and what has been shared with me, and then I'll give you some websites on that information as well. So let's jump into that. Exchanging a U.S. driver's license. Now, this comes from the Embassy of the Republic of Korea in the USA. So exchanging your driver's license for a Korean driver's license is, you can do that. That's a thing. You can also get an international driver's permit, which is good for 1 year. And you can get that from AAA, and I think it costs like $15, $20. You can even renew it for another year. So if you're, there's that option. But eventually, you're going to have to get a Korean driver's license. So according to this right here, the Korean Embassy in the United States, there's 14 states that have reciprocity agreements with Korea. Now, I have seen other people post and say in even other websites, and we'll pull up a Korean website that shows there's like 22 or 23 states. Maybe they've increased the number. They just haven't updated, the stuff over here. So we have Alabama, Florida, Idaho, Ohio, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Oregon, Texas, Virginia, Washington, West Virginia, Colorado, and Georgia. We came from Colorado. And if you're from these states, I would suggest renewing your driver's license before you come to Korea. So that way, most driver's licenses are good for 10 years. And there's a reason for that. Have your driver's license apostilled. Please contact the issuing state's office of authentication for an apostille, or you can use an apostille service. And I'll put a link to the service that we used because we were here in Korea and we were able to get the apostille while we were here in Korea. And I think it was like $60 or $70 for licenses, and it worked out well. So it talks about more information going to koroad.or.kr, which is interesting, which pops up this, and it's safedriving.or.k, and this is translated into English, and it's not orientated right, and it talks about, the driver's license test and all this stuff, and so you click on this, and, license exam, test application, and an issuance of a driver's test and a mobile. It's just not a real good reissue of the exam. There's nothing here that really says, well, how do you exchange your Korean driver's license? So people have sent this to me and say, hey, well, where is the information on this? And it's like, yeah, I can't find it on here either. So, it's very, very interesting. Qualification exam, training, reissuance. This is some really interesting and confusing information. But you just really can't seem to find what you need. So this one comes up, exam guide, scheduled visit for exams, issuance of learner's license, issuance, people over 70, international driving permit, we've got that. So we might take a look at that. And that comes up with a real name verification. It just, it's just not a real good website to say, hey, here's what you're looking at doing. And I still haven't even found it on this place. So going to the U.S. Embassy and Consulate in the Republic of Korea is where I found probably the most accurate information so far. And then we'll go over some information that I learned when my wife and when we exchanged our driver's license. So let's make this bigger so y'all don't go blind. Try to read. And again, this is from the U.S. Embassy. And to exchange the driver's license, you'll need a certified copy of your driver's license, in other words, an apostille of that. They can provide a certified fee for $50 per copy. So you can do that at the consulate. You may choose one of the two options. By courier service, you can do that. So your processed documents and certified copy back to your door, your U.S. driver's license, memo requesting a certified copy, and then a money order. You can also do it in person and schedule an appointment online for the notary service. We were lazy, and again, we used an online apostille service. And we're able to do that. So when it talks about applying for the Korean Driver's License Agency to exchange, they can do training, they can do testing, and they provide a card for the driving test, which is kind of cool. The driver's license applicant must attend a safe training, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about exchanging your driver's license like we saw on the Korea part. From the Embassy of Korea. And basically, they don't have this information on here, but you can also get an international driver's permit through AAA, like I was telling you before. So, it's just really, really problematic that you can't find the information of how to exchange it. So I'm going to give you the information that we found. So let's go ahead and we'll take a look here on the process, and I think that's coming out okay. Yep. Can I make that any bigger? View, zoom in, view, zoom in. I think that's as good as we're going to get. Okay. We'll just have to deal with that. So anyway, this is the process that I found when we went and actually got and exchanged our U.S. driver's license. Your driver's license cannot be expired, and I highly suggest that you just renew and get a new U.S. driver's license before you come to Korea. So let's say you got 5 years left on your license. I personally would go back to the driver's license, the DMV, and say, hey, I lost my license, can I get another issued one? Boom, you'll get you one. It'll be good for 10 years usually. Then when you get down here is that it says you will likely have to surrender your license. In most cases you will, but there's a way that you can keep your U.S. driver's license, but also still have your Korean driver's license. And there's a little hack. It's not guaranteed, but for everybody that's done it so far, it's worked. You'll need the Apostille copy of your driver's license or certificate of driver's license from the U.S. Embassy that we talked about. If you go to the Apostille route, you'll have to go through that, and we'll take a look at that. Embassy certificate. You'll also need your Korean registration card. They used to call it an alien registration card, but it ends up that was offensive, and now it is referred to as the KRC, the Korean registration card. It must be original, and you must have more than 90 days of validity remaining on your visa or your card. You need 3 or 4 passport photos. I ended up just taking 6 for the hell of it. Taken within the last 6 months. And again, regular passport photos, you can't be wearing hats and hair's got to be behind your ears, just the standard passport thing. And then we come down to a completed application form, which you can get at the driver's license office in the area where you're at. Go to one of the main offices. Not every small police station can handle foreign license exchange. The major cities will have one. In other words, Gangnam, Dobong, Seoul, Gangseo, and Seoul, and you submit your documents along with your application. You undergo a physical and an aptitude test. In other words, it's a vision test, and I think, you see the light, you press the button, and whatever it is, or step on the pedal, and that's it. There are some fees involved with that. To receive your Korean driver's license, if all the documents are in order and you pass the test, you will receive a Korean license the same day. That's what happened with us. I haven't heard of anybody not getting their license the day that they went to exchange it. Not saying that it couldn't happen, but with us, we were able to get it that same day. Now, the forms that you're going to need that will be provided by the driver's license examination office, you'll have the application forms, the other forms of official documents. You'll need your apostille, the embassy certificate, and your certificate of entry and exit. That is a big one right there, and it has to be valid. It has to be issued, and within 90 days. If it's outside of the 90-day window, you're going to have to go and get another one of these. This is what happened with us, and we didn't know anything about this. So it has to be within 90 days. Matter of fact, within 90 days. Luckily, at the city where we went to do our driver's license exchange, it ends up that they had a city office that we could go to, and we're able to get the updated certificate of entry and exit. Thankfully, we were able to get that, and we were able to do the exchange. So the apostille fee varies state by state, $5 to $20 per document. If you do it online, I think it can range from $40, $50 to $70 plus the mailing costs and fees. So you have that. The U.S. Embassy certificate of driver's license fee, if attained in Korea, is around $50, payable in Korean won. The certificate of entry, which is about 2,000 won, if I'm not mistaken. I would probably just chalk it up to 10,000 won and you'll be good to go. The little vision test that you do is like 6,000 to 7,000 won. Again, maybe 10,000 won at the most because it's been a while. To get the Korean-only license, it's 8,000. But what you want to get is this one right here. The Korean and English International Driver Permit Style License. That is 10,000 won. Now, the reason that you want that is because on the front is the Korean driver's license, and you flip it over on the back, that same license, but it's in English. Now, with that, you can rent cars in the United States, and you'll be good to go. So it's best to spend 2,000 more won. Seriously, just get off, spend 10,000 won, and you'll be good to go. For the photos, depends on how much you're going to pay. I think we ended up like 10,000 won for our photos. So in other words, with excluding your apostille or embassy fees, it's going to be about 20 to 35,000 won. Bring a little bit more, add some for maybe lunch or getting some snacks and things like that, and you'll be good to go. So a total estimated cost, including the apostille, could range anywhere from 70 to 100,000 won. And again, that's with the apostille fees, and it depends if you're doing one or two people. Obviously, it could be a little bit more. The overnight express and things like that. And it's not that big of a deal. Always check the this is funny because when I found this, it says always double check the latest requirements in the list of reciprocal states on the official website here. But that site is horrible as far as being user friendly. So it is it's just absolutely crazy. When we get down here, another interesting thing is we get down that you're actually going to be surrendering your U.S. license, as we see here. Surrender of your U.S. license. Be prepared to surrender your U.S. driver's license. Some people report being able to request it back when they permanently leave Korea, but this is not guaranteed. However, there is a hack to this, and it is a hack that we actually use. It's a hack that other people have used, and so far, everybody that I have told this to, or people that have done this, it's worked for them. And what that is you're going to go exchange your driver's license, right? And then what I want you to do is to get a travel itinerary of going back to the United States within 1 or 2 weeks. And then you take that with you. I'm not saying make a reservation, but just have your itinerary. And the hack is that when you go exchange your Korean driver's license, you present your travel itinerary, your supposed travel itinerary. You're planning on going. Whether you go or not is, makes no difference. But you're intending to go back to the United States and say, hey, well, we're planning on going back to the States. I'm going to use my U.S. driver's license. So the clerk ends up taking that, and the rest of our application came back and said, okay, well, here's your Korean driver's license in Korean and English, and here's your U.S. driver's license because you're planning on going back to the United States. So we were able to keep both of our licenses. And every person that I've heard do this has been able to keep their U.S. license. Otherwise, if you don't do that, they will keep and hold on to your U.S. driver's license. And which isn't really a big deal, but because if you go to the United States, you can present your Korean driver's license, which is in Korean and English, and use that to rent a car and so on and so forth, and you should be good to go. But there's just something nice about having the U.S. driver's license. And again, it's good for 10 years for the Korean driver's license. If you don't have a travel itinerary, they will keep it. And let's say for whatever reason, you're going to leave Korea and, for whatever reason, you're tired of Korea and you want to go back to the United States, you can go back to the Korean driver's license DMV and you can request and you can get your American driver's license back. There's also some other things that ends up down here. This is some interesting information that we need to take a look at. So down here on the bottom, it ends up, let's see if we can move this up a little bit. Down here, processing time of the license can be issued the same day. Document verification or other issues can cause delays. I think ours took like an hour, maybe 2 hours. And it was decently busy. Non-reciprocal states. If your state does not have reciprocity, you will need to pass a health and vision test, pass a written test on a computer, pass a driving skills test on a closed course, pass an on-road driving test. This is more time-consuming and potentially a more expensive process. The interesting thing that I found out from a number of individuals is that there are people that come from states that do not have reciprocity agreements with Korea, but people have informed me it's, they went up there and told them and said, hey, yeah, I'm here to exchange my U.S. driver's license for a Korean driver's license. Here's the form, here's the money, you did your vision test and whatever. You don't have to do the written test, driving test, or all that other stuff because they don't check. They just see U.S. driver's license. Oh, okay. And they exchange it. And I haven't heard anybody who has not been able to exchange. I'm sure there's probably some instances of where there was a clerk in the office that looked and actually checked the reciprocity list, but I haven't heard of that. So there are people that have told me, it said our license was not on that reciprocity list, but we were still able to exchange our license and not have to take the written test and did not have to take the driving test. So I'm not guaranteeing you that that will happen, but there's a possibility that you could still exchange that. It depends on the clerk at the DMV. So far, everybody has been able to, that I've talked to that did that was able to exchange their license. And with that being said, there were, where was that? If I can find that. There was a list showing driver's licenses and the states of reciprocity, and it ended up being 22 or 23 states that had reciprocity. And I thought I had the website, but I can't find it again because I have so many tabs open and I close so much stuff. Yeah, it ends up, it was like 23. So it was Alabama, Arizona, Arkansas, and it was effective supposedly November 23. So they added those two states, and just so Alabama, Arizona, Arkansas, Colorado, Florida, Georgia, Hawaii, Idaho, Iowa, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Oklahoma, Oregon, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, Virginia, Washington State, West Virginia, and Wisconsin. So on that list, thankfully I wrote this down and put it on my notes, but they had 23 states. So it's anywhere from 14 to 23 states that have reciprocity. I haven't been able to verify on any official Korean websites on those 23 states versus the 14 that we saw, but that is, if you find that, shoot me an email and we'll add that to the list. So anyway, despite the problems of the audio and the video not syncing up, I hate that. I really, really don't like that. And I don't understand why, because when I first started, it was working well, and then it just kind of clunked out. So I'm using the Ecamm Live software, and it really bothers me. I don't know, does it bother you? Bothers me. So, but what you can do to help with that endeavor is maybe it's because of the YouTube algorithm. I don't know. So like and subscribe to the channel. I would help. Maybe that would help the situation. It would definitely help me. But with that, I think we're going to end this video and we'll close this out. And again, if you have any, boy, we have all kinds of strange stuff going on here. The Zoom is off and all kinds of wild stuff. So anyway, if you have any information, if you have questions, concerns, tips, tricks, anything like that, send it to the email address down there, officialthevariedlife@gmail.com. And with that, what we can end up doing is taking, I can answer any questions or whatever. Like and subscribe. If you really want to do me a solid, you could buy me a coffee, and that's what that scrolling ticker is all the people that have bought me coffee, and in turn, I buy other people coffee. We do have a question, and this pops up. Seems there's a lot of confusion about telephones and banking in the USA while living in Korea. Okay, yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. As far as telephones, we got rid of our U.S. telephone number, and so we have our permanent Korean telephone number, and that it is what it is. When we first came over here, though, we did have our U.S. service. We called our carrier, I think it was Verizon or whatever it was, our phone service was in the States. And what we ended up doing is saying we're going to be overseas for a month because we needed time until we could get Korean phone service or temporary Korean phone service. So we were able to keep our U.S. phone number, and then if you have one of those dual SIM phones or whatever, if you're real smart on that tech stuff, you would be able to keep that number and have a temporary Korean number. But for us, what we ended up doing on the phones, we just transferred over and got permanent Korean cell phone service after we got our Korean registration card, and we're good to go. As far as banking is going to be another one. You have to have your Korean registration card, in other words, some type of approved visa to open up a Korean bank account. And if you look in the playlist, I go in detail on some of that. One more alibi. We've got any thoughts on Johnny Somali? Yes, Greg, Johnny Somali, the idiot boy from the United States. He's actually an American citizen. He's not Somalian. His family has Ethiopian descent. They're American citizens. He's an American citizen, but he is a nuisance streamer. And yeah, the dude just came over here, started breaking laws, harassing people. He's done deepfake videos of him and a Korean female and some other people, which is illegal here in Korea. So he's currently being charged with that. 2 counts of deepfake videos, which if the punishment gets on those, that can be like 10 years. He's disrupted businesses a couple of times, some lower offenses. And according to Legal Mindset, YouTuber, basically he's currently looking at about 10 to 12 years. But he still needs to go to trial for the 2 deepfakes. So yeah, I'm hoping for like 10 years. Nice round number of 10 years. But every step of the way, he says that he is being targeted because he's black, and the dude is just a waste of space. He's like 24 years old, and he is an absolute idiot. He does the nuisance streaming, and the thing is, he came to Korea, and what he ended up doing, we'll take a look at some of these pictures here. This is what he looks like. But what he ends up doing is committing crimes and harassing people, and because he's a U.S. citizen, and because there's a language barrier, that he thinks he'll just be let go. Well, Korea stepped up their game and they arrested him. He's out on his own recognizance. But yeah, it's just he praises Japan. He with the comfort women, like I said, he broke a number of laws here in Korea, and it's just kind of disgusting on the stuff that he does. He was actually on public transportation. There's the pictures right there of where he was. Let's just take a look at this. He was likely to be deported after some prison time. So there he is, and what he ended up doing is getting 9 sheets to the wind drunk in a convenience store, which is illegal here in Korea. He was pouring out the food. He was throwing food at people. He was harassing, telling people he's going to kill people or rape them and whatever, and all his offensive behavior. In his name, Johnny Somali, he just uses the word Somali because he hates Somalians. Anything to get any type of, any type of clout, internet clout, and more views, that's what he does. So anyway, he can't leave Korea. He said he was going to leave Korea. He said that, this was way back in October, that he was going to get fined maybe a few $100s and then he was going to leave. They stopped him from leaving the country, and it just didn't, it's not going to work well for him. And matter of fact, it ends up with Johnny Somali. Let me see if I can find Legal Mindset. Johnny Somali. He just did a recent video on estimated trials, or estimated time that he could end up in Korea or in Korean prison. So there's a timeline. Let me see if I can find this real quick, because it just ends up, the dude is just a total tool. And he puts a bad name on Americans. Let's see, where's the little prison sentence predictions? So we'll take a look at this, and we'll see if we can get into if I can get this, because this is really interesting. So let's take a look at this real quick. Since we go down this rabbit hole, thank you, Greg, for that. Legal Mindset has got some real good information. He has some friends that are here in Korea that have been to the trial. He actually came to Korea on the first one. He's actually pled guilty to, I think, 5 things. And, the minor charges, he pled guilty. I think the first court case he pled guilty to 3 crimes. So now he's a convicted criminal here in Korea, but he hasn't been sentenced yet. So it ends up, here is the sentencing range. He has another obstruction of business. He has the deep fake. And so what we're looking at is mitigated. Obstruction of business will be a fine. Deep fake could be 6 months, so it could be a total of 6 months. But that isn't, the bad thing is that it seems like Johnny Somali, all the stuff that he does is aggravated. So it could be 2 to 5 years for the obstruction of business. And one of them, I think Lotte World is actually involved in this. The deepfake video, he could get anywhere from 2 years and 3 months to 7 years, but all under the columns for aggravation. Ramsey seems to have at least minimum aggravation or even max. So it could be anywhere from 4 years and 3 months to 12 years. So it's just kind of interesting on how he goes through and, what is aggravating the crimes and things like that. It's just not a good thing. Ramsey is just he's a tool. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out, the Johnny Somali thing. I haven't wished prison on anybody, but he deserves to be punished. And so I totally just don't like Johnny Somali. I don't like what he does. I don't like that he, makes a fool of Korean citizens and things like that. Let me see if I can end up. So here is, and we'll take a look at this real quick. So this is the status that they had. So he had obstruction of business on his first court case. He pled guilty to these 3 crimes. Obstruction of business count 1, Minor Crimes Act, which isn't like a minor kid, but he was harassing people with rotting fish, and then he disturbed a bus or the public metro system. So he pled guilty to all of these things. We don't know the punishment yet because he has to go through all of his court cases, and then we'll find out, and they'll give one final number of, how much in fines and how much prison time if he does any. But it looks pretty darn good. So this one we have obstruction of business. It could be Lotte World, and let me see if we can find out. Yeah, so we get down here. It ends up it was Lotte World on the bus. Public transportation / Lotte World, because I think they both, it was in that the bus or the transportation system that takes them to Lotte World, so they have like a contract, so if they were able to put those in there, there's a max penalty of 5 years. We talked about, he pled not guilty on those. The deep fake count is making a video portraying a sexual act, and kissing is considered a sexual act here in Korea. So against a streamer, and so this was like the day of his trial, and it ends up that he pled not guilty to the deepfake one, not guilty for the second deepfake, but the obstruction of justice was supposedly guilty, but I think even that is kind of interesting. And the next trial date will be on August 11th. Now, he's been here since like last year. So this could technically go into next year. So what Korea ends up doing is really just, it's bad. They just string this out. He's on his own recognizance, and then he gets in more trouble and racks up more charges, which will mean more time. But the thing is interesting is that since he's already a convicted criminal here in Korea, on his next trial, that will be taken into consideration, and he'll probably get worse time by the judge. The next trial will have the victims come forth, and they'll give their testimony, and then there will probably be another court case, which would be a couple more months down the road. He is just, Greg says, he's gold mine for folks like you. Just thought, put a post about Korean outrage, and you can ride the wave. Yeah, absolutely. And the dude is just an idiot. Unfortunately, there's more people like him, but yeah, it's always good to not break the law in the country that you're in. And he hasn't learned that lesson, so there it is. So anyway, with that, I think that was the last alibi. We'll finish up here. Again, please do me a solid, like and subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate that. And again, all the people that bought me coffee down below, you can click a link and you can get on that list as well. If you want to send me other information, questions on retiring in Korea, or just saying hi, go to officialthevariedlife@gmail.com, and I will 100% answer every single email. And if you got suggestions for future videos, you can send those to me as well. So with that and the audio video missync thing, I deeply apologize. I'm sorry for that. It is what it is, but yeah, I'm just going to try to have to figure out how to fix this. And it wasn't a problem before the last Mac update. So thanks, Mac. Thanks, Apple, for screwing it up. All right, with that said, we will see you on the next video. If you liked and subscribed, other than that, we'll see you on the next one. Peace. Yeah, we're done. Good stuff.